Welcome to the Fantasy Football Prophet Podcast, hosted by Craig Phillips and Jeff Torrey. Visit us at fantasyfootballprophet.com. And now your hosts, Craig and Jeff.
Welcome, everyone, to the Fantasy Football Prophet Podcast. I'm Craig Phillips, joined, as always, by Jeff Torrey. And today we're going to talk about players that are trending up on our list here as we get closer to the fantasy football season. It's always a good time at this point in the preseason to revisit maybe a little bit what we thought about some players. And maybe opinions have changed. Maybe there's guys that we didn't really think about too much or whatever. They're just going up in our minds. So we got two players each today we're going to go over. Before we do that, make sure you guys go check us out on Instagram at instagram.com/fantasyfootballprophet or youtube.com/fantasyfootballprophet. Follow us there, subscribe to us, all that good stuff. Check out the video version. If you listen to the podcast, go check out the video version on YouTube as well. It's always a good thing. So, but before we get in this, Jeff, we just had our big draft this past weekend, our home league, which is still, I think everyone has to agree, your home main league, like a live draft, is probably the best thing in fantasy football. And we had ours over the weekend. I drafted the perfect team, exactly what I wanted, and I'm feeling good for the year. How about you?
I feel great. As many times as you tell me, you drafted exactly how you wanted to. And our league is kind of strange because we have keepers and money and all this other stuff. So it does handcuff you at times. And Craig was down money, but I can't endorse that. There's no way that you drafted the perfect team for yourself. But
I did.
I feel really good about myself. None of our guys have gotten hurt, which
True.
You can't say for everyone right now. So it's going to be fun to battle it out, even though me and Craig are technically in different divisions.
It's funny. I actually put together numbers. I don't know if you saw that today of what our records have been during the 4 seasons that we've done the podcast in that league.
I did not realize we are the exact same, and we're 1 and 2. We're tied for first.
Yeah, we are tied for first in that league with the exact same record during the 4 years of the podcast. Before that, I clearly had the upper hand. So
yeah. I think I was still number 2, but yeah, you are.
You had
So I had a lot of wins, and you had a lot of titles.
Yeah, you're actually you're within 10 wins of me, something like that. So
yeah. If it wasn't for last year, I would be a lot closer. I got massacred last year with COVID and everything.
Yeah, but no, I did draft the perfect team. It was great. It's good team.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. No, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So as long as you're happy, that is all that matters.
I'm the 2022 champs. That's what I set myself up for.
2022. All right.
All right, here we go. Trending up, Jeff. Who's your first guy on the list today?
The first guy we have to talk about is Marcus Callaway. So wide receiver for the Saints. He has been moving up everyone's board throughout the preseason, but after his last preseason game, there's a couple things you can really talk about, right? One of them that is not him would be Jameis Winston and how wonderful he looked. And obviously, we've been saying this quite a bit for other players as well, but whether it be Alvin Kamara or when Michael Thomas comes back or whoever it could be, Trautman. If Jameis Winston is the quarterback, we feel a lot better about the fantasy football output of the offense. If Hill is, we feel good about Hill, and then everyone else suffers. It's kind of how we've been doing. And Jameis, I felt like finally established himself above Hill that last game. We don't know what's going to really happen, how it's going to shake out, but he looked really good. He looked like Jameis Winston minus the bonehead plays.
He looked great.
Who knows? But his favorite target during that was Marcus Callaway, who is, he's an unknown, but he's the only guy right now. And he is the one guy that has been performing very, very well in the preseason. He caught 2 touchdowns in that game. They were both bombs. They were, contested. He looked really, really good. So it did make me a believer to the point where, and thank God I grabbed him as one of my last picks in our draft. And then this happened because, if you have to draft now, he's definitely going to skyrocket. So I figured we have to talk about him first.
Yeah. So he, it's like it worked out perfectly. You've been hearing the hype, right? The buzz about him for the last month or so, right? That he's looking like their number 1 without Michael Thomas. And, you hear that stuff in camp. How much do you really believe? And then he showed it in a game big time. Like it was evident. And Jameis obviously feels comfortable with him. Throw those 2 bombs up there to him. And I loved what I saw from Jameis. I have Jameis in that league I was talking about too. I did not draft him. I already did a waiver wire move before that game, luckily. So Jameis, I love Jameis. I love Marcus Callaway. his value is still lower right now. So he's going to skyrocket up these drafts here. So, but we'll see. We'll see how he still goes in draft. But yeah, definitely. He's 100% trending up right now.
Yeah. And I mean, and right now, I mean, truly, with the way things have been going with Michael Thomas and them not really getting anyone else, he could be the de facto number one wide receiver on that offense throughout the year, which is pretty mind blowing since he was what before. I mean, I didn't check. I checked immediately after, but I know he's going to skyrocket. But he was still ranked as the 89th wide receiver on Fantasy Pro.
Yeah, his ADP was up to about 60 right before that. So his rank and his ADP were kind of like off.
Sure, but even that is way. No, I mean, that is like an incredible. Like he was still somehow a secret, right? Where people weren't grabbing him even at the last. Like I'm sure that if you have already drafted, like there are a few leagues that you can get him in the waivers, and I would do that immediately, like before the season even starts. So, yeah, it's just an interesting, rocket to the moon at the moment. We'll see if he is able to hold on to that, and even more so, even though we think Jameis looked so much better than Hill, it does not mean that's the way it's going to shake out. And that could change the dynamic drastically. If Hill is, for whatever reason, the week one starter, they want to run with him, that would obviously hurt him, but he would still be worthwhile to have because he will be the number one as far as I can tell at the moment.
All right, I'll go my first player trending up. It's a wide receiver as well. So I'm going with Corey Davis here. I've liked what I've seen from Corey Davis so far this year. This past weekend, he caught four balls for 70 yards in just the first quarter. So far, and this isn't just Corey Davis, it's the fact that Zack Wilson has looked competent as a quarterback. I think the guy he looks like he can play a little bit. So Corey Davis has run 13 routes so far this season with Zack Wilson, and he's been targeted on 10 of those 13 routes. That's a pretty high percentage. I know it's preseason, but that's kind of showing something already that Zack Wilson wants to throw the ball to Corey Davis. He's looking for Corey Davis. I mean, some of that, will that change when Elijah Moore comes back here? He just came back to practice this week, maybe. But Corey Davis is looking like the number one, and Zack Wilson is treating him like the number one. And because of that, I think Corey Davis he's up in my top 30 now in wide receivers. He's really going up there. There's going to be a lot of volume for him. And, he played well last year with the Titans. He really did. And we liked him going to the Jets to have a chance maybe to do that number one. We just didn't know what Wilson would do. But seeing how Wilson has targeted Corey Davis and how he's done, well in 2 preseason games, I'm moving him up my draft boards. I feel, I was hesitant about Wilson. So once I can see he looks like he can play a little bit, I'm good with Corey Davis. He's top 30 for me.
No, I'm on board with that. He was actually going to be my number 2. I will talk about someone else. But yeah, 100%. Corey Davis very much impressed me. And more than that, just to kind of talk about, even though he was very overlooked, but there's a couple of things that I think are misconstrued. First, he never really got going in Tennessee, like fully. Like he didn't have a bad year. Like last year, he had 65 receptions for just under 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns.
Yep.
But you have to remember too, AJ Brown is kind of more of a freak of nature that he was able to take the lower amount of receptions that he got and turn them into, fantasy gold.
Right.
So I think Corey Davis moving out, being the number one, and going to a team that will have to throw more because they're going to be down in a lot of games. It's, they're trying to figure it out. You have a young quarterback, you're going to try to air it out. I think will be a really, really good new start for him. He didn't fail in Tennessee, but I think this one will be a better fit. And then secondly, just Tennessee in general. I believe last year, I'm going to have to wing it a little bit, but if I remember correctly, I believe that they were like 30th overall for the amount of times they threw the ball. And, Jets, I have no idea how that's going to be as they're so young, but they're not going to hit 30, right? They're probably going to be in the top half of the league. So that will give him so many more opportunities, even if Elijah Moore is the real deal, even if there's other people that they want to, go to. So I love that. And another guy that we could have talked about on this, even though he's still not draftable. This is more of a dynasty thing, but I think Zack Wilson has looked the part. A lot of the rookies have, but he is probably one that people are not going to, for whatever reason, they're not giving a whole lot of thought to. Everyone's kind of like in love with either Trey Lance or Justin Fields. I get it. They run, they have big arms, but Zack Wilson's arm, like his arm talent is legit. It is so good. And he looks so comfortable in the pocket. I think if you do have a dynasty draft, that is a really tough decision to make. Which quarterback are you actually going to take? If you had to take one right now, we'll even put Lawrence in there.
Yep.
What does the order look like between, Fields, Trey, Zack Wilson? We can put, Mac in there. Who are you actually like intrigued by? Like, who would be your number one pick, and then who would be like a close number two, or kind of like, oh man, I really want to see where this goes.
So right now, I'd still probably pick. It'd still probably be the same order I've had, which would be like Lawrence, Fields, Lance. Then it's probably Wilson, then Jones. But Wilson has closed that gap where it's not. It used to be, to me, it was a top three, and then after that, you'd be like, I don't want with Zack Wilson or Mac Jones right now. But I think Zack Wilson has closed that gap where it's like, okay, maybe if I need a quarterback, I'll get him if he's the guy available when I'm there. He still hasn't gone ahead of him, but he's close. He's much closer than he was. And to see a little bit, it's the running ability. Honestly, it still is Lance and Fields that gets, in fantasy purposes, that gets you over the top. And Trevor Lawrence is we still expect him. He's one of the best quarterback prospects we've had in years. We will hope that plays out. I mean, he hasn't shown that much preseason right now.
I was going to say,
and then we didn't even talk about he loses ETN, which isn't any good either. So
that is not good for him, because if that's another pass catcher out of the backfield that you can do.
Yep.
It's kind of funny that the number one guy, and maybe this is part of the plan, right? You don't really have to get the fan base behind him. He already is there. So maybe they're bringing him along slowly. They know he's going to play and start already. So you don't really have to test him out. He's going to be there. But he has probably showed the least amount. And then honestly, after that, it kind of almost went in reverse order. And I can't tell if that is the team trying to figure out what they have, and the guys that are playing behind someone are they have all the reason in the world to really get out there and gut it out. Or if maybe Trevor Lawrence, even though he definitely deserves to be in the NFL, maybe it's not a guaranteed he's the number one guy because he was just on a much better college football team.
It's possible.
It's possible, but I still do believe in the talent. But it's very, very interesting. And I'm glad to see all these guys doing well, because I right now, they all look like they belong. I can't. Yeah. It's nice not to have a rookie quarterback that is getting just torn apart and saying, "Hey, you shouldn't have drafted him that high. You shouldn't know him," because that's got to be the worst feeling in the world. But okay. Anyway, so Corey Davis. So my other guy that I'm going to talk about that is moving up the ranks currently is Jacoby Myers. Last time I looked, he was ranked as the 61st wide receiver. That Patriots offense is starting to come together. The defense certainly looks good. They blew out a team in their second preseason game, so it's a little hard to tell. But Jacoby Myers has looked good, and he's looked like someone you can rely on. You still haven't really seen too much on N'Keal Harry. There's no one else really. And Hunter Henry has been banged up. Jonnu Smith, we've seen him catch like one very impressive ball for breaking a couple of tackles, which I love as well. But you still need a wide receiver. And right now he seems like the safest pick to me. And no matter who is, under center for them, whether that be Cam or Mac, I feel pretty good about him. So I think he is one of those guys that is moving up in my ranks as well. And even more so as you look him up right now after like 2 games, I think it might be Fantasy Pros, but he's like, quote unquote, the highest rated wide receiver in the preseason so far, which is just one of those stupid fun things. But it just shows that he's been putting in the work and he looks really good. So he would be my other guy that I think would go up quite a bit, because he's definitely someone you want to grab late in the draft.
No, I'm good with that one. The offense has looked better than I thought there for the Patriots, at least the passing game has. And I don't know. I feel like maybe last year's just going to be a fluke of how bad that was. It was really just, the offense was brutal. And Myers can be that guy for sure. If Cam, I'm not done with Cam. We liked Cam last year. Remember? And it feels like I've just forgotten about him as well.
He's fine. I have my doubts that he's ever going to return to form, but he should be able to get the job done there.
Yeah. And have a good top receiver with him, or good receiver,
Yeah, he didn't have a whole lot of help last year either. It wasn't all his fault by any stretch of the imagination. And it does make me feel better that now they have a backup that seems plenty capable of dialing up those short to mid route, mid-level routes, and that is, that's kind of their bread and butter anyway. So
Yep.
yeah, I think in 2 games he's had 4 catches, 67 yards, and a touchdown, and that's only 32 preseason snaps. So yeah, it'll all depend. It feels like he's kind of locked it down. Now we'll just have to find out Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne if all 3 of them can obviously eat there, but whoever becomes the favorite will definitely turn into fantasy prospect, a very high end guy. So.
All right, here we go. My next guy. So another receiver. So we went all receivers here today that are moving up our boards. I guess we don't like any running backs this time around, but that's all right. So I went with Jerry Judy. I'm in love with Jerry Judy right now. I don't know why. I see the talent, and last year was disappointment. It was not what you would want. CeeDee Lamb really kind of outshone him, and and Justin Jefferson obviously too. Justin Jefferson way above, but then CeeDee Lamb was the other guy. They just kind of Jerry Judy was kind of left out there. No one really, he didn't play that well. I guess catch rate wasn't well. He had, I think, 12 drops. None of that stuff's great, right? But it seems in the little bit I've seen him so far in this preseason, he's starting to look like the player we wanted him to be. Caught a nice 35-yard pass the other day. I think in the first game he had 1 catch, but for 33 yards. You're starting to see that ability, that big play receiver. He can get some, just play really well. And it's not always just him. Drew Lock hasn't looked bad, and Teddy Bridgewater has, even if it's Bridgewater hasn't looked terrible. I think it's going to be Lock. I hope it's Lock. But Lock has looked much better this year. I was just out on him completely, but he has looked like he is good enough again to sustain it's not just Jerry Judy, because there's also other pass catchers there. There's Courtland Sutton and there's Noah Fant. There's guys that throw the ball around too. I think Lock he's shown me enough. He's shown me enough to make it where I think Jerry Judy can have this breakout year. And I think Jerry Judy can become the number 1 there. No doubt. Sutton, I like Sutton. We've liked Sutton, but he's been hurt. And I think he's a good 2. I hope he's a good 2. And Jerry Judy becomes that real number 1. And maybe not, it doesn't always happen. Receivers don't always break out year 1, right? We've been spoiled a few.
They normally
spoiled.
Don't.
Yeah. We've been spoiled a few times. Yeah. Like Justin Jefferson last year, in the past, Odell Beckham, Mike Evans did great in their first years. But you get the others. You get the Devontae Adams. You get the DeAndre Hopkins, who did not do that. And they are what they are now. They weren't that year 1, right? They weren't those guys. I think Jerry Judy can be that. And right now, he's barely in the top 30, maybe in ranks. I don't even know where he's at right now, but you can get him for a good price. He's probably even beyond 30. But Jerry Judy, I'm on board.
Yeah, I haven't gone away from him yet. He broke my heart a little bit last year. And that is, once again, the drops are what really freaked me out, because I went into it and I was a huge Justin Jefferson fan, as everyone knows. And I came out and I said, hey, like, these are really good wide receivers. Like, some of the best wide receivers you're going to see as a group in a draft in a long time. And I was like, CeeDee Lamb is legit, all this. And I was like, Justin Jefferson will be the best wide receiver in his rookie year, because he had the best placement, right? Mm-hmm. It's just very easy to see. And then I said, after that, I'm pretty sure I would bet that Jerry Judy would have the best overall career, though. That's how highly I thought of him. And the guy he really can do it all. He's fast enough. He runs routes like, a madman. But as soon as that Denver team, they took it on the chin as far as COVID and not being able to really practice, because Locke did not look. He took a step back. We know he has arm talent and everything, but man, he looked bad last year. And even to the point where, like you were talking about, they got Teddy Bridgewater, who is not any. No one's saying he's going to save a franchise, but you could tell that they needed someone in case the shit hit the fan. And I'm glad to see Locke looking a lot better. I thought this is what that team was going to look like on offense last year during the preseason. I really did. Mm-hmm. And on top of that too, and we even, you named a bunch of other guys, but they also have Hamilton, who is a deep threat. They have a lot of weapons on this team. I think that can help Locke out. So I love that pick. I'm glad that you're not completely over him. And Sutton, I think, man, he was another one. I think he is the real deal as well. But once you start having those injuries, I agree with you. It freaks me out. And I think both of those guys could be very, very good for a roster, especially like a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, or even maybe turns into a bye week, but they'd be worth having. So I'm rooting for him, but I love that pick.
Yeah, and Judy had 113 targets last year. The targets were there already. And, the catch rate was terrible. But is that all Jerry Judy? Is that on the quarterbacks? He had Kendall Hinton throwing in the ball one game, not even a quarterback. Like, it was a rough year for Denver. So I like the 113 targets. That's a good sign.
Yeah, they try to get it to him. And honestly, if it wasn't for the drops, and once again, you probably you get thrown over the middle a couple of times, you start getting those alligator arms where you don't trust where the QB is leading you, and you can just get out of sync really quickly. So, Jared Judy,
sure. All right, there we go. There's trending up for this week. We have trending down coming in a couple of days. Can't wait for that one. That's always that's where the hate flies comes in. People don't like our picks, but you know what? I'm happy, Jeff. I'm very happy you didn't buy in and put James Robinson on this list. Very happy about that.
I mean, we could, but
we can't. That's
a heartbreaker, though. ETN, I was so high on as far as a rookie. I'm just bummed. It's the same thing. You never want an injury to happen. But it goes both ways, right? So I thought ETN was going to be really good. I thought Cam Akers was going to be kind of a bust. And now we won't be able to find out either of them. And the worst part is they're both, talented young guys. So I feel for them. But the one thing I will mention, if we can, might as well mention ETN now. How does it? Obviously, you're not drafting him. He's probably going to be done for the year. You're not drafting him at all in any redraft leagues. Dynasty.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that question.
What does that do? Because I'm not going to lie, I'm looking down the barrel, and we kind of joked about it over one of our text threads. But I won last year in our dynasty, and so I'm picking 10, and I'm guessing the first 9 probably aren't picking me anymore. So it'll be the question of, can I hold off? Yeah, and maybe they do take him. I don't know, but what would your? It is a deep draft this year. Like, there's a lot of good guys. So what would be your advice to people if they're eyeing ETN?
I'd say if you're in the later half of a first round of a dynasty draft and he's there and you don't need something else right now, like you have a good team, I think I'd go after him.
Here's a question. So you do believe that he will come back and he will be as good as we think he is next year? There's nothing that would lead us to believe that he wouldn't, right?
Yeah, it's you would hope so. But I think at that point in the draft, I take the chance. I mean, if all the let's see. I mean, I'm trying to think of players who has to be gone. Oh, so obviously Najee's going probably number 1 in a lot of these.
Najee will be number 1 now.
The other running backs that'll probably go. Javonte Williams probably goes.
Michael Carter,
and maybe Carter and Sermon, right? Maybe those guys.
I would say
and you got
probably
Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle for sure, right? You got those 3,
right? And then you might throw in a QB if you need it.
There's 7. ETN could very well get there. But if those guys are gone, I'll take ETN. Unless you need a quarterback.
Yeah, I know the quarterback thing kind of throws it up. Here's a question, because you said, like, I have a good team already, right? So it doesn't hurt me because my starters are kind of in line. Great. Yeah. So I could take that risk. I could take him and say, if he doesn't work out, whatever. But if he does, I get a steal. But what about the team that is building, but they know they don't really have a chance this year?
Like that too.
Why not?
I'm good with that, but I don't think you do that early in that draft. If you're one of the bad teams that have an early pick, if you have,
I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
But you could get him early second round then.
If you can get him at the beginning of the second, I'll do that all day.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's about right. But a lot of people do trade draft picks as well. So if you traded it and you want to get back into the back end, you might be able to get a very good player for a deal. You just have to hope that he rehabs correctly and there's no setbacks. But it does sound, it's such a strange thing to have an injury be a quote unquote sprain and is going to lose a year like that. That's such an I've never heard of that.
That Liz Frank injury is a tough one.
Yeah. It's pretty wild.
Yep. But all right, there we go. There's trending up. We'll be back with some trending down players for you. Talk to you guys next time.